Tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. The interrogation of Jesus began not with the chief priest Caiaphas. It happened with the father-in-law of Caiaphas, Annas, the former chief priest. It was not the normal order of things, and that would be what is the whole night, a night of sham and charade. Now Annas questions Jesus without any charge. This again is out of order. In any court of law, you appear before the judge because someone has a charge against you. But there's nothing like that here. Jesus just appears without any charge. But he is interrogated, investigated, and questioned about his disciples and his teaching. Now the high priest has nothing. He's just looking for dirt. But you just can't find any dirt on the perfect Christ. And Jesus says, I have spoken all around, openly in the world and to the world. And I've taught at the synagogues and in the temple. I have nothing in secret. And if you really have a charge, then bring it on. Now this is where the officers standing around just struck Jesus with his hand. How insolent are you, Jesus, to speak this way to the high priest? It was just intimidation. They were just threats. Now after all this, Annas had hoped that at least Jesus has been softened up for further interrogation. So he sends Jesus to Caiaphas. At Caiaphas' house, the rest of the leaders had gathered and they were all ready. In Matthew 26, verse 59, it tells us how the chief priests and the whole council were seeking false testimony against Jesus that they might put him to death. They were not looking for justice, they were looking for false witnesses. Just anyone who would give them an excuse to execute him. But verse 60 tells us they found none. And towards the last moment, I think they were already exasperated. Two came forward and said, this man said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and to rebuild it in 3 days. I wonder how did they know, because in the gospel account, Jesus only spoke to his disciples. Did somebody betray Jesus? And anyway, is that a crime that warrants a death sentence? What do you say, Jesus? But he remained silent. The high priest then says to him, I charge you by the living God. Tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And I love the way Jesus answered him. Jesus will always say, you have said so. So he said, you have said so. But I tell you, from now on, you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven. You have rightly said so, and I will come one day in great glory. And Jesus is absolutely right. Now, this is it. It's blasphemous. Caiaphas now puts on a dramatic show. Oh, he looked so pious as he tore his robes and he shouted, Jesus has uttered blasphemy. But right deep inside, he must be smiling because now we have got you, Jesus. This is it. My Sanhedrin brothers, what is your judgment? And they all answered, death. Now, Roman law says that Jewish leaders cannot execute anybody. So they are unable to execute Jesus. So they turn Jesus over to Pilate. And here's the twist. Pilate would not be bothered with the religious quarrels of the Jews. So they trump up another different false charge. He claimed to be the king of the Jews. Out of his wits, Pilate tried to pacify the Jews by torturing Jesus, but the Jewish leaders wanted death, Jesus' death. Pilate again wanted to set Jesus free, but he shrank back when the leaders shouted, if you set this man free, you are no friend of Caesar, and anyone who claims to be a king opposes Caesar. Oh no, that won't do. Pilate must have been thinking, I may myself be crucified in place of this man. Alright, shall I crucify your king? Pilate asks. And the chief priests answered, we have no king but Caesar. And here it is. In one crucial moment, the chief priests had betrayed themselves and the people. They have turned their allegiance to the enemy. But in the bigger picture, they have renounced God. I've often asked myself this question: why did the Jewish leaders want Jesus dead so badly? I've come to this conclusion. It's about performance versus expectations. They had expected, I will tell you, they've expected Messiah for a long time. And they had been hopeful that this Jesus would be the one, the Messiah prophesied. But as time went on, he did not seem to fit into that model. This plus the sting of insults that Jesus kept at them. You brood of vipers. Jesus never had a good word about them. That made them crazy. That made them angry. Another way is to look at it is they had expected, or all of the Jewish people have expected, a Messiah on the white horse. A warrior who would come and wipe out Israel's enemies. But Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey, a working animal, a servant animal. One day, Jesus will come. Revelations 19 reminds us that he will come on the white horse, the conquering king. Jesus was not what they expected. What about you? Now, what happens when God doesn't perform as you expected? God is one who can answer every prayer, but he answered it in accordance to his way. What happens when God doesn't perform as you expect? Would you continue to be faithful to him, cling on to him, cling on not only to a purpose today, a promise today, but a promise eternal? Or would you be like the Jewish leaders who not only turned against the Son of God, but renounced God himself? I pray before you lay your head down tonight, speak to the Lord. Consider the things that he has not answered you accordingly. And can you say, your grace is sufficient for me, for your strength is made perfect in weakness. Good night. Shalom.